Next item on our agenda is RS 20053. Representative Trail. This looks familiar.
Mr. Chairman and committee, yes, this is, as they say, one of those those reruns. And so I'll try to make it fairly brief. But we do have some new members on the committee, and so, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to at least give a little more background on it. The RS regards the regulation for elective civil service, and no stranger to this committee. The legislation passed this committee and the House last year almost unanimously, and got jammed up late in the session as we wound up and were scheduled for a hearing in Senate State Affairs, but we didn't make it to the end of the session, didn't have time to get a hearing. The central thrust of this legislation relates to line 1415 on page 1, relating to a decision of a competent tribunal declaring an elective office vacant due to an apparent abandonment or prolonged incapacity of absence. The legislation was reviewed by the AG's office. Opinion issued by Deputy General Mitch Taransky noted that if enacted, it would be valid and enforceable. It would eliminate issues that arise when a city councilman or a county commissioner or other elected official is absent from his duties for an extended period of time. The legislation has the endorsement of the Association of Idaho Cities and Association of County Commissioners. I'd like to provide you with just a little background on how this legislation came forward. 3 years ago, the city of Moscow was faced with a situation in January 2007. Don Dickinson, Moscow City Council President, was assisting a stalled motorist along a bridge along the Columbia River when he was involved in an accident and knocked over the bridge. After the collision, he could not be found, and he was declared missing. After an intensive search and rescue mission, he was declared missing, and his body was recovered almost 7 months later in the Columbia River. In addition to the grief felt by John's family, an unforeseen consequence resulting from his disappearance was the fact that John had his seat on the Moscow City Council remained vacant, but not available to be filled until his death was confirmed. This was due to current Idaho law, which limited an official vacancy to confirmed death, resignation, removal, or issues of residency. There is currently no provision to address in the Moscow case an extended absence or prolonged incapacity. In the time from January to July of 2007, the business of the Moscow City Council continued and his seat remained unfilled. The council was unable to seat a quorum when several members on the council were sick, and so the business of the city was stalled for at least 2 months during that period of time. Fortunately, the situation is extremely rare that the proposed legislation would be activated, but like Moscow, the disappearance of an elected official can be detrimental to the business of local government. And we have 2 examples. One was mentioned in debate on the floor of the House by Representative Lake. He said this legislation would have benefited the case in a local school board with a missing school board member. And several years ago, in Nez County, a sheriff disappeared for 5 months and caused a great deal of concern and problems for the county commissioners there. The proposed legislation would amend Section 59901 of the Idaho Code, would have broadened the definition of vacancy to include apparent abandonment or prolonged absence. It would provide a determination made by a competent tribunal. An example would be a district judge to prevent unfair and unethical political maneuvering to oust an unpopular office holder. And again, as rare as this may be, Mayor Cheney of Moscow can tell you that we need to tweak and correct this gap in our current statutes. And upon that, Mr. Chairman, I'm open for questions.
Are there questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Representative King.
Thank you. Representative Trail, I know this is just print hearing, but prolonged incapacity. I mean, should we set a time, 2 months or 6 months or something like that?
Representative Trail.
Mr. Chairman and Representative King, we did ask and check both with our Association of County Commissioners and Association of Cities and also Attorney General's office, and they felt that putting a specific timeline on that, as rare as this occurs, was not needed because the urgency to fill a seat would have the initiation of the request to come to the appropriate tribunal to make a decision then to allow the county commissioners or the city involved to name a replacement in a timely manner.
Okay. Follow up.
Representative King.
So about the tribunal, I don't see it in the legislation. Did you say it was somewhere else? That
Mr. Chairman and Representative King, we, on advice from the Attorney General's office, we left the definition of tribunal somewhat open, with one comment being that a district judge would be probably the most logical, but there may be other legal tribunals that may be appropriate depending on the area and the circumstances. But that would be worked out in consultation with the Attorney General's office for advice.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions, Representative Trail. Hearing none, the RS is before the committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Smith.
since this is second go-around, I move that RS 20053 be introduced.
You've heard the motion. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the motion is to introduce RS 20053. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it. Would you like to be recorded as voting no? Yes. Representative Crane would like to be recorded as voting no. Thank you, Representative Trail.
Thank you very much.